everyone, this is Neil King for Random Acts of Cartooning, and I'm still working on this Inktober sketchbook, 31 sketches, 31 days. And I'm going to do a sketch for you today in the book. But first...
Okay, everyone, here's the influence for this episode. More Bernie Wrightson stuff. Sorry about this light. This is from his work on Creepy, a magazine. And as always, spectacular work by Wrightson. He did this for many years. It's typical, beautiful line art. And all that realism, all that time he took to work some of this out, all these kind of horror classic areas, like great sense of drama, as always. But look at these, like very kind of brutal images. This all happened in the 50s and the 60s, I believe. Eventually, the comic book code eventually stopped a lot of this stuff happening. But really beautiful stuff. This is Carmen Infantino. But I love looking at his work, his sense of space and design. Look at all the hatch work, cross-hatching. This is all kind of early work. You could just go through this. There's so much of it. Beautiful stuff. And his color things, these are so inspiring to me. This is kind of what I'm doing right now. Limited color. Look how spectacular that looks. It's right with me, right? Beautiful stuff. Love it. Bernie Wrightson, Creepy Presents. It's a great buy.
Okay, getting started here. This is the 25th illustration for this sketchbook, and it has been really fun to do this over these days. It's really, I tried to make this a part of a storytelling thought also. Now it's based kind of loosely on both the things from the book and from the actual movie, the 1930s movie Bride of Frankenstein. And so I'm just kind of drawing in, I'm trying to push in some of the, parts to the monster. So I do kind of base him off of the Bernie Wrightson style, which is that kind of, you see through that nose. It's just like this septum thing. Like it's really, it gives us feeling of the skull, like a very much creepier type of a feeling for the monster. So one of the big scenes in the movie is when the bride is created. She's alive, and the monster is the first time sitting with her, sitting next to her, and he grabs her hand. Now, in the movie, which, it's made in the 30s, so to me it's such a different thought of, the place of this character. They've made this great character, this female character, and she really is still kind of a prop, that she's been made for him. And so I'm trying to change the thoughts a little bit with this simple little story. I don't have any dialogue or anything like that. So, but this is the moment that they meet. And so I'm trying to establish him in the background. Kind of a scary thing, but he's got a little smile on his face and all that stuff. So in my pencils, I'm still trying to keep it loose, not doing too much detail, because I do feel comfortable just going in and adding detail and adding the little parts that I need with ink. But I am still very aware that these hands that I'm drawing could be a little large or a little small, so I will have to adjust as I go through. I lay in her face. Again, this is all a lot of foreshortening. If I'm going to have that hand up there close, I have to be aware that if I establish her head in this area, where that shoulder is going to be, and how it'll be dealt with. Like, I can look at these sometimes and I'll be like, all right, I think this is a pretty good space, but it's kind of, because of the gutter there, of the sketchbook, it makes a lot of decisions up for you. You're like, all right, am I seeing this the way I actually see it? Because it could be distorted a little bit with the paper being folded a little bit. It has a little curve. But I do, even at this early stage, I really am looking at just big shapes. And I know that I'll come back and I'll refine all of it. But when you see it in this stage, I think it's always good to see it in this stage, is that you see some of the decisions are being made early about where the focus is. And to me, because you're reading left to right, you should be thinking of, you're seeing her reaction, and then you're moving to the next page, and then his hand is like kind of enveloping hers, and she's just, she's basically just been born, and here she is, her hands being taken by this, this creature, and in the film, she's terrified of him, like she sees him, and her whole reaction, she's horrified by it, but I kind of want to make it more so that she's brought into this world and she's just being, manhandled. She's just being taken, and that's my feeling with this. Like, I'm trying to have a little bit more of her side of what's happening. So again, this is a limited area. So when you're doing a sketch like this, you have to be aware of it. So I'm going to move into this. This is my new brush pen. It's a Pentel brush pen. And I do really like it. It's called a brush sign pen. And it's pretty good. Like, it gives me a thicker line. The problem with the microns is that they just don't have any life in them, but you do need them for a whole bunch of things, and it does help. But with this, I can really kind of get quick line, and it's not as strong as my other Pentel brush pen. That's a true big brush, and that's when I get my the real power strokes that I use for a lot of my line art. But for this, I see quickly that the feeling that I need for the character. Now, because he's kind of a skull almost, if you look at it without that nose, it makes him kind of a skull face. And so I just want to, when I'm doing a face like this, and you don't usually see him smile, I don't want it to seem too goofy, but I definitely want there to be a feeling that he does have a little emotion, and he's not just the way you would see this character almost all the time is just screaming or angry and very menacing looking. So I'm trying to give him a little bit of character, and in this it's not too difficult to kind of put in, but I'm really kind of just moving my way through, finding the big areas, but to me, this is about, in this thing, I'm kind of looking at it, and mostly this is the real detail. I'm not working with my microns to establish that. So it's a very strong image. Now I'm moving on to her. So with her again, like, there are accents that you have to be aware of and you're a little worried about, because you're going in, and because I'm on this sketch, and once you go for that final, there's no going back. So I'm trying to keep her as simple as I can, and just establishing the eyes, not too much going on. I want to see the full eye, because that's all her reaction. And, looking for that good contrast. I always think that when you're drawing eyes like this, you have to be so aware of not overdoing it, like trying not to put every little eyelash in. I try not to as much as I can. It all depends. Again, little touch-ups right around the face. I was thinking about the whole time about the movie. And because I've seen that movie, The Bride of Frankenstein from the Universal movies, so many times. And when I actually see stills from it, it's not always the way I think of it. I really put it into my memory as a lot of different things sometimes I see it in different angles. And when I actually want to draw something like that and actually look at the picture, I'm always kind of surprised by it, that I saw it maybe slightly differently than the actual movie was. So for whatever the angle is and all that. So the idea here is that I'm going to now make my way over towards that hand. But notice again, I have a lot to do with that foreshortening. So this is all that nice line that I'm getting out of this piece. Whenever I'm drawing hands like this, especially when it's a creature like this, I kind of square off the fingers. It's a very Kirby kind of thing to do. But I'm trying to get a nice angle on them, have them be a little expressive, the fingers. It would be kind of he's grabbing it from what I'm anticipating from his left hand. So I have to be, again, super aware what I'm doing here, because he's kind of this huge hand that's grabbing this woman's hand. And I don't want hers to seem too small, or his too big. There's a lot of things I'm thinking about here. And I'm like, all right. And I've drawn a lot of hands in my life, so I'm not afraid to change how that hand looks at any given time. Even the pencil part. I just want to make sure that, especially this, I'm looking at it, I'm like, all right, there's another finger in there. I just won't see the end of that finger. And I hope that it reads, because you got a little thumb in there. You got to make sure that all that stuff is being seen. So for him, he's got another finger that I got to get in there, and it's got to be put in low. And I think it gives it kind of a nice, kind of cradles the hand in there. So if I keep that pretty low, I think it'll pull off with the knuckles in there. And it's mostly going to be dark, and you won't be able to see all of that. But I'm definitely just kind of, what's nice about this brush pen is it's thin enough to get detail, but it's also gives it a nice thick and thin by pushing on it a little bit more. So there's a part of me that keeps thinking, should I put more detail in? Should I put more? But I eventually kind of go right over and just have to decide at one point to go to the big gun, which is my brush pen like this. And this is the Pentel Pocket one. And this is where you're like, all right, let's get serious about some darkness. And I kind of wanted him to be in a little bit more of the dark. So she's going to be pretty bright up in the front with some values from the monochromatic watercolor. But for him, he's just going to be, I'm going to go in, and I kind of like it as if he's just coming through a shadow, but we'll see. And I know that I don't have to do too much with the brush, because once I come in with the watercolor, I'm going to be a lot more aggressive. And all I need to do is make sure that the shape of him is good. And but once I know that as a sketch, I know that once I go to the wet media, that I'm going to blow out a lot of this detail just by going right on top with that color. And then I tend to get darker and darker as I feel like if it works or not. But you can see he's very kind of skull-like. And I do like doing that for him to be pushed back in space when I'm going to be doing this stuff. Again, pretty rough, nice dry brush feel. I feel like that's a big part of when I do my sketches. I like that part of it. And I'm just kind of, pushing it in there. I mean, the thing that the viewer is really going to be looking at is her expression with this hand that's up close. There it is there. Yeah, I think that this does really help to make this whole thing really, really pop. Okay, so we're kind of finishing him up. Again, I'm a little worried sometimes when I'm with this bigger brush. I feel like I go too far in, so I move over towards her, and this dry brush is really what I want. I want that deep dry brush feel, like you can't make that up with a technical pen, right? So it's nice to kind of go in there after you've done some nice details and to counter it with this darker look. She has that classic hairstyle, so I don't want to forget about the white streak that's in there. Trying to beef up her lines, but I'm really getting kind of close to wanting to throw that wash on there now. Drawing here off camera. I think I adjust it eventually. Comes up again, accents all over the place. So before we go into the color phase, there's this.
I want to remind everyone about that I am a working cartoonist, and on my Amazon store I have multiple books that I have created. This is my latest one, Shock, and it's perfect for this time of year. This episode is in October during Halloween, and I've shown this before, but this is about a host of a creature double feature here in the Philadelphia area. And this was during the 70s. And it's the story of the character. It's not about him as a man, the real actor. It's about creating a character from that character that I grew up on, that I saw on Saturday mornings, or Saturday afternoons, that is, for the creature double feature. He would come in between each one of the parts and commercials, and he would talk about the thing and make jokes and do magic tricks. So I gave him a life in this book. It can be purchased on Amazon.com. So make sure you use the link. That's a part of the details of this video. And support what I'm doing out there. I'm moving on to my next graphic novels. And thanks as always. Like and subscribe.
Okay, it's about time we get some washes on there. I have my semi-moist prang watercolors here. And I'm just going to go in. So remember, this is a monochromatic illustration. I have to find out where my lights, mediums, and darks are with this wash. So when you throw it on top of the line, you get a sense of where it is. So what I see right away is this is pretty light. So I'm doubling down on it in some areas. I want that hair to be a little bit deeper. And I'm just setting an atmosphere. If you take a look at these types of things too, like the great things about these films, a lot of them are black and white, but they have such great lighting on everyone. So I was trying to look at some of the stills that I've seen, but it's very contrasty stuff. So I'm going right in there and putting some of this in the side of her nose, around that lip and everything. You stay consistent with that light source. I almost want the hands to be kind of like a bursting feeling, right? Like she's looking in that direction. Now remember, she was just dead. So to me, with the character, I do like to have her, with some real value underneath her eyes. That I'll try to do that. I don't want it to be too clean. And again, I'm just getting the lights and darks in there. And then start moving my way through the composition. Now the monster is going to be on that far side. So I've really got to prepare her with the lighter values first to see if it holds. You can see some of that ink line is breaking down a little bit, but it's with this kind of stuff it's fine. So I try to clean my brush out and make my way through it. But you can see what this does. It's why I really do love limited color work, because it just adds so much to that line. It doesn't overdo it, and if you do it in a subtle way, to me, the way I like to work with it is these textural kind of watercolors, instead of it being just super clean. And then just move through it and then find your way as you go through. Just building the area around him. As you can see, I've laid in a bunch more here. So the hand is coming up there, but all I've done so far is really just kind of get those lights and mediums. I'm going to try to bolster up the background, get that nice dry brush feel even with this watercolor brush that I have. I've been using this too long, this brush, but it's hard to give up. It has a certain feel that I get from it, so I keep coming back to it. Again, I'm jumping ahead a little bit. And with this one again, it's getting close to that place, but now I'm putting in my deepest reds. I probably won't go back in with any reds after this point. I'll just go in with some blacks and grays. So that once you do that, once you establish something that's that dark, then you got to touch up everything. Like everything's got to be brought up to that light, medium, and dark after. Opening that door, you got to walk through and you got to make sure that you are doing this throughout the entire composition. You don't want people just to look at one place where those deep reds are. So I'm trying to go through his face. In my plan for him is that he's really going to be very shadowed I really don't want him to compete with those two hands that are up there. I want them to be in front and for him to pull back. But already I feel like there's a nice, with that watercolor, I think there's some real nice feeling back there. Almost gives me this sense of Japanese watercolors on wood block. So here we go. I've established all my darks, mediums, and lights, and now I'm going for the real thing. This is where I'll get my most contrast, and you'll always see that red underneath all of this value. It's a true monochromatic piece. Lights, mediums, and darks of one color. And as soon as you get these deep, deep darks, I feel like it gives a really nice kind of feeling to the atmosphere that you can't get without adding some of this to the reds. Like, you need a deep, deep red. So here I go. I'm just kind of seeing where it should go. I don't want these things to be pretty pinks. I want them to be deeper. And then as soon as I do this, as soon as I put those in, you can see what that does. It makes that face look so much more three-dimensional. Brings it all out. It's like lots of little touches. I'm trying also to make sure, again, I keep an eye on what's going on with him. He's on the opposite page. I have this kind of vest on him that it's textured. Some kind of animal skin thing. I've seen in a bunch of comics they put him into something like that. I didn't put him in his typical jacket, like it was almost like a suit jacket thing that they had him in. I kind of put him into something else. It's a total composite creature over here. So again, getting rid of some of the lightest pinks, but you can see that pink underneath all of this. I have to be a little more aggressive as I go through, but I don't want to get too close to her. Like, I don't want her to be on that other page graphically, and that he kind of is just over here on the other page. His shoulder would have gone much bigger. And probably may have also, if it was real, probably almost touched her face, but that could mess up that whole feel. You want him to stay away from her, so that she has that whole, you really see her reaction. So I'm now kind of getting rid of everything that I don't want to have as white. Adding some more contrast back there. Give that gothic look. Really like, again, I get that these types of things, it's not like when I draw something that's for children or things like that, like, right, I stay away from these darker kinds of things. When I do this, I really want to have all of that really nice, scratchy, textury feel that I can only get with this kind of brush. It's just a round brush, but it really is multifunctional. Really grown to like it. Again, just touching up all these areas. I don't want you to lose sight of it. You want to make her arm seem rounded by adding some of that value. I get some underneath her chin. I don't want to do too much. It's always scary, like if you do too much with the face. But I'm kind of moving it around. I think the foreshortening's working. I could have pushed it a little further, but I think it works fine. That overlapping line seems to be doing the trick. There it goes. Again, trying to stay away from her as much as I can. It's hard. You always want to touch up a little bit more, and you just don't know when to leave it alone. And so you're always fighting yourself to say, like, when is it? When is it done? Giving her even a little bit more contrast there. Yeah, I think she just really pops, right? So here I am in this area, this is the last touches. I know when I'm kind of getting to the end of this stuff. When I work throughout the whole piece, I'm going all around. I'm not staying in one place when I'm rendering. I just keep going back throughout the whole piece and checking what needs to go away and what needs to stay closer. Like at some point, I almost get rid of these ears. I'm like, are these ears just too much? Am I looking at them too much? More extreme darks. See, I was just like, I don't like that ear. Just trying to get rid of it a little. And I didn't know how this was going to go when I first started. This is why it's so great just to sketch like this. Not positive. And no matter what I do with this, I'll probably eventually come in and touch up some stuff at the end. Just so I can really see it. But I think he looks, that smile, it messes you up a little bit to see him like that, because he's always so. But I kind of showed his teeth a little bit to kind of give him a little creepy look, like it is a little creepy, and like he's, this woman's been made for him, and then here she is in the middle of it. Such a strange thing with the story. So with this Inktober thing, I'm just trying to change it up a little bit. I'll eventually have a video on this about every piece and maybe talk about what I was thinking when I was making the piece. And to work on it every single day, looking at all the pages, trying to find the pacing. It's been a lot of fun. Again, kind of coming down to the end, little touch-ups. Look, I'm almost getting rid of that side of that face. I'm like, I don't want to see it. It's bothering me. I'm like, all right, I'm going to get rid of that side. I don't mind the light source staying on his left, my right. You want to keep him a little grotesque, a little scary. But there is a humanity there. It's not like, he was made to. In the movie, they just are always talking about it. He just wants to die. So that's the thing about this whole piece. It's interesting. Beautiful characters. I think I'm coming right down to the end here. All right, so as always, I appreciate you tuning in to this episode. And hopefully you get a nice feeling for what's going on with this type of work and how I do my sketches. This is a very convention sketch feel. And make sure that you're liking and subscribing so people are moved towards all of my other work. Thanks for watching.